Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about emulation on the Steam Deck with RetroDECK. And RetroDECK just published some very interesting information. So the post is called January 2024, a new year of RetroDECK. It explains a little bit about what they've done and a little bit about where they plan to go. I'll drop a link to it in the description below as we're just covering it at a high level. The first thing they mention is cooperation between projects, and they list out PlayStation Vita emulator Vita 3K. And they say parts of the RetroDECK team have been talking to the Vita 3K team about hotkey improvements, flat packs, and other things. They also say they're in talks with the developer of Boiler to add RetroDECK games as separate entries in Steam. For those who may not be aware, Boiler is 100% free, it's open source, and it automatically adds almost all your games to your Steam library, including image art. I'll drop a link to this GitHub in the description below. They're working on improving the gyroscope setup. They say we are experimenting so you don't have to do the entire setup for emulators like Yuzu to enable gyro. If we can get it to work, it will be configured in the emulators for the Steam Deck as soon as you use them. And as for emulators, it appears they're working with the MAME development team to get MAME working with RetroDECK. They're evaluating Ryujinx, and stuff like Musion already works. And their Godot configurator is still a work in progress, but shaping up pretty nicely. Next up, we're talking about PlayStation 1 emulation with Duckstation, and Duckstation just got a brand new update. Now this is mainly just a bug fix update, but it is a brand new version, and there's a brand new version for Android. If we take a look at Duckstation on the Google Play Store, the latest release is January 8th, so this brand new release hasn't hit the Play Store just yet. But if we head over to the Duckstation website, we can see the update right here, January 22nd, and it's the bug fix update. I'll drop a link to this page in the description below in the event that you wanted to check it out. Next up, we're talking about a bit of a controversy, and it involves ToastedShoes. Now, we talked about ToastedShoes yesterday when they created a Pokemon mod for Palworld, and then Nintendo came after them. And today's controversy is a little bit different, although along the same lines. So Sorgranda commented on my video yesterday and said that is not the whole story. The mod was behind paywall on his Patreon. So he promo a paid mod using an IP he does not own, so profit from an IP he does not own. And that makes a lot of sense. No wonder why Nintendo went after him. And then, interestingly enough, today, the well-known modder by the name of Ermacker, or Ermasser, I'm not quite sure on how to say their name, but they are well known. They say, remember not to pay for any Patreon mods when they are leeching off others. A video about how ToastedShoes lied to me and the Thiny. I'm not sure if it's on purpose, seems misguided by other people involved on not using our work. I do recommend checking out the video. It's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. And it basically shows some code that Ermacker wrote and that ToastedShoes paid for by someone else, and they're very similar. So if I'm not mistaken, and it's been a long day so I might be incorrect, this is what I understand the picture to be. Ermacker created a mod. And then ToastedShoes paid someone else to create a mod. That other person stole Ermacker's work and gave it to ToastedShoes. And then ToastedShoes locked it behind a Patreon page for people to buy. Now, if I'm misunderstanding this at all, let me know in the comments below, but Ermacker did a great job of explaining the difference, or lack thereof, between the two sets of code. This, to me, is a very weird situation. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up, this is just a heads up. Yesterday, we talked about Winlator version 4.0, and today people have been experimenting with it. And someone's got New Vegas up and running at over 30 frames per second. And someone else has The Elder Scrolls Oblivion up and running at over 220 frames per second. And they did include a photo of their setup. This is very interesting to me. If you've played either of these games, let me know in the comments below. It appears this update is great for Bethesda. Next up, if you're a fan of Ridge Racer, but there's an itch you haven't had scratched in a while, there's a brand new game in development you may be interested in. It's called Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Midnight Challenge, depending on what you want to call it. So at the time of filming, there is a demo available for Midnight Challenge. It's up on itch.io. It is for PC, and you do need an X input controller. Moving on, and we're talking about adventure horror game Until Dawn, and this game was released back in 2015, and it appears it's headed to PS5 and PC. The source for this one is in French. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and feel free to use Google Translate on it. Now, it's expected this game is going to be announced for the PS5 and PC in the next couple of weeks. Let me know your thoughts about this one. Would you be excited about it? Moving on, and we're quickly talking about Splatoon 3. And if you're a fan of this game, the Side Order DLC is going to be headed to the Nintendo Switch on February 22nd. This is a single-player campaign DLC. It's worth pointing out, as far as I know, and I may be wrong here, you cannot buy this DLC separately. It's part of the expansion pass, which also includes Inkopolis. It'll set you back about $25 USD. Moving on, and we're talking about the increasingly popular Palworld. And if we head over to SteamDB and take a look at the all-time peak, it's currently sitting in second place. And that's players playing at the exact same time. It's closing in on PUBG, and Jeff Keighley confirmed that Palworld has sold 7 million copies in 5 days on Steam alone, and that does not include Xbox sales or even Game Pass, and that apparently translates into approximately 189 million USD. Now take a look at these numbers here, 7 million in 5 days, and compare that directly with Pokemon Legends Arceus, which sold 6.5 million copies in 7 days. And this was the fastest selling Pokemon game on the Switch. These are incredible numbers, and the fact that Palworld is outselling Pokemon speaks volumes. It makes me wonder, how much would Pokemon actually sell if it wasn't a Nintendo exclusive? And on top of all of that, today Palworld outlined their future roadmap. They're going to be addressing bugs first, and then making some configuration improvements and improvements to the base PAL AI and pathing. And for the future, and this is probably the much more exciting stuff, they plan on introducing PvP, raid bosses, a PAL arena, which is PvP for PALs, Steam Xbox crossplay, various Xbox feature improvements, server transfers and migrations, improvements to the building system, and new islands, PALs, bosses, and technologies. So for those who are saying that Palworld is just going to be a flash in the pan, that it's just a fad, just wait until Palworld introduces those features. It's going to explode even more. And speaking about game development, next up we're quickly talking about game development and talking about Godot and the Nintendo Switch. And to me, this is exciting. They've announced a free Godot engine port for the Switch. For those who may not be aware, Godot is a free and open source multi-platform game engine. And it's nice to see that RAR Lab is offering this port for the Switch. Next up, we're quickly talking about Netflix games, and it appears that adding the GTA trilogy to mobile was a very smart choice. I'll drop a link to this page in the description below. And if you take a look at the lifetime Netflix game downloads, in first place here is GTA San Andreas with a whopping 11.6 million. Surprisingly, GTA Vice City is down in 10th place with only 4.1. I wasn't expecting some of these games to beat it. On a quick side note here, I'm not quite sure where these numbers are coming from. I'm assuming from iOS. I mean, if I head to Android, GTA San Andreas Netflix only has 1 million plus. Next up, this is more of just an FYI. If you're a fan of video game music, you might be excited to know there's a couple of concerts heading to YouTube. The first one here is the Legend of Zelda Orchestra concert. It's going to be pre-recorded, and it's releasing on February 9th at 5 a.m. PT. The second concert is the Splatoon 3 Deep Cut, which will be available 1 day later on February 10th. Next up, if you're a fan of pen testing or ethical hacking or security-oriented Linux distributions, you might be excited to know that Parrot 6.0 has just released. So Parrot OS 6.0 is built on Debian 12 Bookworm. It features kernel 6.5, and there's a version here for the Raspberry Pi 5. Next up, we're talking about Pokemon Cubic Crystal, which is a ROM hack of Pokemon Crystal for the Game Boy. This is supposed to be a big quality of life improvement. So in this ROM hack, Pokemon have fully revamped stats. All evolutions are available without trade. Happiness is easier to accrue. Morning exclusive Pokemons now appear during the day. The story has been revamped, the trainers have been tweaked, you can now press B to run, and even more. I'll drop a link to this one in the description below in the event that you wanted to learn more about it. Next up, if you're a fan of Max Payne 3 and you're a fan of modding, you might be excited to know there's a brand new HD texture pack out. This is available over on Nexus Mods. It's 100% free, and I'd argue based on the images, it kind of changes the vibe of the game. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up, if you're a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, there's a brand new trailer here that just leaked. Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. I'll drop a link to it in the description below in the event that you wanted to check it out. It's a 2D pixel style of game. Now, surprisingly, the developer doesn't seem to mind at all that the trailer leaked. Here's the response on Reddit. No need to keep it all hush-hush, it's okay. Yes, I was trying to keep it a secret for a bit longer, but now that it's out, that's fine. The game has been in development for a really long time, actually, and I'm really proud of the final product. It will be a 10th anniversary game. Next up, we're quickly talking about Nintendo 64 emulation with Kaizen. Kaizen is a fairly new N64 emulator. It's 100% free, it's open source. It's available for Windows and Linux and just got a brand new build. The new build here changes its overall look and feel just a little bit. So for specifics, this build adds in a Qt for the native GUI, and in the future they're looking at JIT, debug tools, TAS tools, cheat supports, and even more. Next up, if you're a fan of Game Boy Advance game development, there's a brand new 3D game engine that's about to be available. It's called 3D Sage, and I'll drop a link to this trailer in the description below. To be honest with you, this seems very impressive for the Game Boy Advance. Next up, we're quickly talking about Nintendo Switch emulation on PC with Ryujinx, and Ryujinx just got a small but real nice update. So as of version 1.1.1124, there's a Vulkan update that results in a minor performance improvement on some games. And last up here, we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with Citra, and Citra got a number of updates. So nightly version 2080 fixes black squares and Sakura Samurai Heart of the Sword. Nightly 2081 fixes Pokemon games when using Vulkan on RAD-V. And Nightly 2083 fixes the rain at Gloomy Manor and the suction effect being reduced in Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. There are small improvements to translations. It fixes Tales of the Abyss crashing in the tutorial and fixes particle effects. And it implements the news service. For reference here, this is the initial implementation of the new sys module, which stores notification data. So they say this implementation is complete for local notifications, but it is missing a few things. For example, interactions with Spot Pass, handling of Street Pass, and notification LED. To pick up the latest and greatest version of Citra, head to citra-emu.org and click on Download. Once you're here, click on Manual Download, and then pick up the nightly build for your platform of choice. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and one fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.